Lovely. Okay, cool. So let's get started then. Thank you for all joining. This is our Bywater's third webinar of the series, and today we're going to be looking at food waste and more specifically reducing food waste. How can we do this? Yeah, so hosted by me. That's a lovely picture of me with some fireworks in the background. Thanks, marketing team. Yeah, so this is the agenda for today. So firstly, understanding the impact of food waste. So why is this important? Just a little bit of context to the problem. How can we actually recycle food waste? We're going to be looking at some different partnerships in place with food waste. We have a lovely guest speaker with us today. So Caroline will be taking over halfway through. We're going to be looking at some best practices for businesses and households. We're going to be looking at consumer education and, of course, some goals and measuring progress. How can we achieve this? So firstly, we've just got some facts and figures. So according to the UN FAO, around a third of all food produced for human consumption is lost or wasted. So that's a huge volume of food waste that we're producing every year. We obviously want to be cutting that back down. In 2021, WRAP estimated that food waste in the UK was 10.7 million tonnes. We can only assume that this is getting slightly higher each and every year, so let's try and cut back on that. This stat actually blew me away when I first read it, but if food waste were a country, it will be the third highest greenhouse gas emitter behind the US and China. So there's a lot of carbon emissions involved in growing food and especially in the waste as well if it's not disposed of correctly. So make sure we're disposing of food waste correctly, basically. By eliminating avoidable food waste, the average four-person household can save £1,000 per year. So this is especially relevant with the cost of living crisis going on. We don't want to be spending loads and loads of money on food and then just wasting it. We want to be making the most of what we've got. So over 3 million tonnes of discarded food waste in the food industry each year is actually good to eat. So we're going to touch on this a little bit later as well, but we're going to be looking at best before and also use by dates. So these are two completely different things that both mean different things. One of them is more for health and safety reasons. So if it's actually not safe to eat, so that would be the use by date. And the best before date, it normally does mean that the food can actually last a little bit longer than what's on there. It just tastes a little bit better before, but it's still completely fine to eat. So this food is actually enough for 7 billion meals. So big stat. Let's just take that in for a moment. It's a big stat. 14% of UK adults have experienced food insecurity, which is an estimated 11.3 million people, nearly a fifth of the UK population. This number has actually been on the rise since the pandemic, and it's rising more and more with the cost of living crisis. So we've got here the Sustainable UN Development Goals. Number 12 is responsible consumption. So this is what we want to have. We want to be consuming our food responsibly. So here I've just cherry picked a few of the individual targets. So we've got 12.3, 12.4 and 12.5. So 12.3 is basically targeting food waste at the retail and consumer sides to reduce losses across the supply chain. So like we mentioned earlier, there's up to about a third or 33% loss of food waste pretty much consistently throughout every stage of the supply chain. So this could be due to various factors. You can imagine maybe when you're growing it, you're not getting the correct weather conditions, and a lot of that food has to go. Then you can go into later on, let's say it gets to the supermarkets, they're throwing away some of their food as well. Before it even gets to home, then you're still throwing away some food. So across the whole supply chain, we're actually losing quite a lot. 12.4 is a target basically on reduction and reducing the amount of waste and chemicals that are released to air, water, and soil. So making sure that these wastes are actually breaking down in the correct environment, and not just having food waste decomposing out in the middle of the street, because this breaks down and releases more carbon emissions directly into the atmosphere. And we want to be capturing that and recycling it if possible. And 12.5 is a target in reduction overall waste produced. So this one is fairly simple. We just need to basically be cutting back on how much we're producing. Okay, moving on to the fun stuff, legal frameworks. So in Scotland at the moment, there's been some legislation and that they've been trialing for a couple of years now that basically means that any businesses that produce X amount of food waste weekly will have to have a food waste stream inside their business. This will be coming over to the UK and Wales at some point. Unfortunately, the UK government keep delaying this, but it's good to keep everyone aware, keep everyone on top. So let's say, for example, the majority of us right now are in we're an occupier, part of a larger building, and we have our dry mix recycling waste stream, our general waste stream. If we do not have a food waste stream, we will be guaranteed to need a food waste stream. That's because our whole building will be producing more than 5 kg of food waste weekly. So it's a big thing, and it reduces contamination in other bins as well. So that's something that we're really trying to cut back on. The food waste is actually the biggest contaminator in all of the other waste streams. So you can imagine if I had a dry mix recycling bin and I had lots of paper, lots of cardboard in there, but then I just put in a banana skin, I put in a drink, all of that would actually just reduce all of that dry mix recycling into wet mush, and that would actually have to go into the general waste. So that's why we're trying to separate all of that out so we can actually better recycle the rest of the things as well. So it's a win-win for everyone. So we're going to go into a little bit of how we can recycle at Bywaters. So what happens? So a lot of you are clients and you may have food waste stream already on site. What happens to that food waste once we collect it? So we work with our partners, biocollectors, and they take the food waste and they take it to their facility and they put it into an anaerobic digester. So what that means is it's almost like a human stomach, if you think about it that way. It's got the correct temperature, which is around 36 degrees. They have the correct humidity levels and they've got no oxygen. And what happens is they've got lots of microorganisms in there and they break down all of the food waste that goes in and it creates 2 byproducts. So the first one is biogas. This one, if you're lucky enough, maybe if you have hobs at home, this gets sent back to the national grid. And then, like I said, if you have hobs at home, you can turn them on and you'll be using biogas. So that's great news. And the other one is a very high quality fertilizer, which we send off to nearby farms, and they will actually use that in their products. Just a quick note as well, we're getting a little bit of echoes. If you have your mic on, please can you turn it off? Thank you. So moving on to the signage, right? So this is sort of what we send off to most of our clients. And it's clear color-coded signage, tells you what you can put in, what you can't put in. So we may think that, hey, the food waste is quite an easy waste stream, you know, pretty self-explanatory. What can you put in? So food waste, what can you put in? The simple stuff, simple answers: food, tea bags, coffee grounds, and small bones. So if you've got like fish bones or chicken bones, anything like that, that's completely fine. Anything else that's not what I've just mentioned there should not be going in your food waste stream. So at the bottom, we've got some paper, plastics, batteries, all of that. We all know that shouldn't be going in. But some of the key contaminants that we're finding are things like tissues and more often than not, things like vegware. So is everyone sort of aware of what vegware is? If you are, put something in the chat. If not, I'll run through it quickly. But compostable packaging is a bit of an issue in the food waste recycling industry. It is a contaminant in this waste stream. This is because of the process they need to undergo to actually break it down. So like I mentioned earlier, the food waste will go to anaerobic digestion, and the compostable packaging items would actually need to be broken down by in-vessel composting. So this is a lot longer of a process. It normally lasts about 6 to 8 weeks rather than the 72 hours of the anaerobic digestion. It also involves higher temperatures and it involves oxygen as well. So the byproducts of breaking these things down are not going to be a high quality fertilizer and biogas, because you're not going to be having food waste. You're going to be breaking things down that have like little plastic bits in them. So they would be a different type of fertilizer, shall we say, would be the end product. But that's sort of why you can't put them in the food waste stream. So it's sort of a little bit of greenwashing from their part. So you may see, let's say, some coffee cups or some packaging for your food items that will say biodegradable at the bottom, or they'll say compostable, something like that along that wording. And basically, unless you have a separate compostable waste stream, that would have to go in the food waste. Sorry, that would have to go into the general waste, not the food waste, because it's a contaminant in this waste stream. So that is, sorry, we actually just got some messages in the chat. Let me have a quick look. Can we add some straw, wool, and other organic components into the food waste stream for anaerobic digestion? It's a great question, Rodrigo. Thank you for that. But we actually can't. So if you keep those all separate, they would have to get collected separately. So make sure you're not mixing that into the food waste. And James, are you saying that compostable packaging is no better than recyclable packaging? So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. It does depend on the waste setup that you have on site. If I did have a compostable waste stream, I would say 100% that's better than, let's say, your everyday plastic packaging. But that's not very common. Not a lot of people have this separate waste stream. So in the end, you're basically paying a little bit extra for a compostable packaging that doesn't really get recycled in the current waste streams. So to answer your question, James, it's a difficult one. But if you don't have a compostable waste stream on site, I would advise you to maybe go for other packaging. So moving on to consumer education. So like I mentioned earlier, not everyone's aware of what they can put in and what they can't put in. So we at Bywaters, we can provide different things to try and help educate everyone. And you can always get in contact with me. My email's on here as well, or you can message me on my LinkedIn or whatever you need, really, whatever's easier. But what we can provide, so we can provide bespoke training sessions. We can come in, speak to you in the office, speak to your cleaning staff, speak to basically whoever's interested, the more the merrier. And we'll sort of outline every single waste stream, where the end destinations are, what are the key contaminants, and just sort of speak with you and sort of have a discussion about what works for you. Yes, and then webinars, we're having one right now, but we're constantly doing these. So bi-monthly, every 2 months, we've all got new stuff. Signage, as shown before, we have a wide range of different signage. We can make it a little bit bespoke as well. So some occupiers actually have their own color schemes that they need to follow and their own branding that they need to follow. So we can always work with you to create some new signage as well. So having bins as well, it may sound quite straightforward, but a lot of occupiers actually don't have a food caddy, or they don't have a separate waste stream for food. So it's about having that in place. So when it does get separated out and eventually shipped off site, it's all in the correct waste stream. And state-of-the-art innovations, so e.g. compactors, probably not the best for the food waste stuff, but Nando AI. So let's speak a little bit about that. They are little camera units that you can fit or clip onto your little bins, and they live track what people are putting in. So let's say if I put in this bottle right now into the food waste stream, it will take a photo of that and it will alert everyone and sort of put it on the little platform there that it has to sort of say, hey, there's a contaminant in this waste stream. This is wrong. And it will sort of give you more in-depth breakdowns. So if that is something that's of any interest to anyone, please just reach out. It's not a problem at all. I've just seen another question in the chat. Sorry. So does this include items that are labeled as compostable in home compost bin? So I think this is in response to the compostable packaging question. If you do have a home compostable bin, yes, okay, cool. So if you do have a home compostable bin, can you put in compostable items into that? It does depend. So again, you'd have to actually do a little bit of research and dig into, because there are different types of compostable facilities and things like that. So I did a little bit of research on the grind coffee pods at some point. I think you may have seen them. They had a lot of adverts on the tubes and things like that. And they always say that these are really, really good. They're great. They're compostable. Amazing. And I thought, you know what, that's great. I'm going to look into this and maybe I'll speak to some of my clients and see if they can switch over. But I did a bit of research, and turns out that specific compostable pod can actually only be recycled in a home compost bin. So like you said, Aaron, it does depend on what that item is. Unfortunately, there's not a one answer fits all. It is a little bit more of a, you're going to have to dig in and find a little bit about for yourself, unfortunately. Or if you let me know, I can sort of dig for you. That's not a problem. James as well, can Bywaters provide a waste stream for compostable packaging? Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So just get in touch afterwards and if that's something of interest, we can sort of look towards that. Yeah, moving back on for education, we do provide volunteering sessions, and we have Feast with us today, and we're going to be hearing from Caroline in a moment. So quickly as well, collaboration and partnerships. What can we do as individuals and also as occupiers or as businesses to help reduce food waste? So there's a number of apps that we can use, or a number of services. So you may have heard of Too Good To Go. This is actually great. I've used it many times. So if you're not familiar with that, it's an app where you can sort of look on, and if there is any excess food waste, let's say, or excess food that would have gone out of date or the best before date would have gone off, then companies would actually have to throw that out. Instead of throwing it out, they can list it on this app at a very, very reduced price. And let's say you can get a little goodie bag with about 5 to 10 items for about £2-3. So that's actually great. And it is obviously local and looking at the businesses nearby you. So I'll definitely recommend if you do have that. And very similar to Olio as well. Charity partners, so Fair Share and Felix projects, they're great. This is a bit more of, I wouldn't say really an individual thing, maybe as occupiers, if you do have lots of food that you'd like to actually share and donate, they're definitely great partners. I would definitely recommend that as well. I've actually done a little workshop experience with Fair Share. I went down to their sorting facility and sort of watched them do it really. And what they do is they gather it all up in one place, obviously organising it by date, the fresh produce and things like that. And they sort of actually pack it out into their little goodie boxes or whatever it may be before they ship it off to schools or communities or wherever it may be. So yeah, they're always great, and they've got a lot of initiatives to keep an eye out for. But what are the benefits of this? So we've broken it down to 3 quick and easy ones to remember. Reduces the waste produced, so this is cheaper waste collections, and actually reduces the potential for contamination. So you won't be getting contamination charges or anything like that. Individuals, so for an individual, you can pick up cheaper food. What's not to like? And then overall, less waste produced. We don't want to be producing waste. And now I'm going to hand you over to Caroline, and she will be speaking from now. Caroline?
Hi, thanks very much. Thanks for inviting me today. Really pleased to talk about what we do at Feast With Us. So I'm Chief Executive of Feast With Us, and we are a London-based food and nutrition charity. We've been working with Bywaters for, it's our 2nd year of our charity partnership with Bywaters. So it's great. They've been great to work with over that time. So let me just tell you a bit about us. Start with our vision. It's to feed and empower all sustainably together. So the eagle-eyed of you will see that it's an acronym. So Feast is in fact an acronym, or it was actually a backronym, but don't need to go into that. And we've been going for 9 years now. We were founded by our one of our trustees, Hannah Style, who had just started working as an NHS dietitian. And she wanted to use her knowledge about nutrition to help vulnerable people. And so she looked at an opportunity to work with a homeless hostel in North London that she used to cycle past on her way to work. And she just went in one day and said, you know, is there anything I can do to help provide nutritious food to the residents that live there? So they took her up on her offer, and she sourced some local food donations, enlisted a team of friends and family to volunteer, and the first feast was born. We're still at that venue in North London, and we serve 2 meals a week now. And we've also just launched there our new service, which is Health Eating on a Budget programme to their residents, which helps them build knowledge about food and nutrition and cooking, so providing sort of long-term skills that they can build on. We've now got 14 meal services, and that's growing across London, and we're building on our health eating programme venues as well. So we come together, we bring together different challenges that to focus on in our work around malnutrition, food insecurity, and food waste. So why are we needed? Sadly, food poverty is on the rise, and it's a significant problem, as has just been evidenced earlier on in the presentation. And it really impacts diet and health if you don't have enough money to feed yourself and your family. Healthier foods are more expensive per calorie than less healthy foods. And the poorest, who have less money to spend on food anyway, end up eating less healthy diets as a result. So that's less fruit and veg, oily fish, fibre. And the health impacts are then fairly significant, particularly in vulnerable groups. Poor diets impact physical and mental health. I've used an example of diabetes-related impacts in the slide, and that's of particular interest to us. So we work with some older populations and provide meals to older people in the community. And in some of our services, there's an 80% instance of type 2 diabetes with the people that we work with. And it's already affected their sight. Some have had amputations because they're not able to manage their condition adequately through their diet. There's also incidents of cardiovascular disease, malnutrition, and also obesity. Accessing food is increasingly challenging for the most disadvantaged. So there's that stat again, the 14% of households, which is on the rise. Healthier food is more expensive, and fast food is widely available, and it's often a cheaper and easier option for people to buy for their families. A disproportionate percentage of vulnerable people are experiencing food insecurity. So that's disabled people, people experiencing homelessness, and older people. And as we've also covered earlier, there's so much food that is going to waste. So it's how can we redirect this? How can we get hold of that food to make a positive impact on those that need it most? So that's where we come in. So we want to tackle all three areas of these challenges: nutrition, well-being, and health for vulnerable people at risk of food insecurity. So we bring together a team of volunteers, surplus food. We provide the chefs and nutritionists, and we make balanced, nutritious meals based on the Eat Well guide recommendations for a balanced diet. And we also tailor it to people's specific dietary and nutritional needs. So we've talked about the older people and their specific needs around type 2 diabetes, but we make sure it's culturally appropriate, that it's fine for people who've got dental problems, sight issues, or drug and alcohol addiction. But we're so much more than just a meal. So we also, of course, we nourish those who need it most. We've got our nutritious cooked meal service, but we want to support well-being and reduce loneliness through community dining, so cooking and eating with the people that we serve, and bringing in volunteers to provide a social occasion for eating. We want to empower people with the skills and knowledge so they can climb the food ladder. It might not be a concept people are familiar with, but Food Ladders is a framework that helps look at community scale interventions. Starting on the lower rung is about crisis food aid, but how can you create food systems within the community that are sort of long-term and sustainable? And we also want to promote sustainability using surplus food as much as possible. We use recyclable packaging and biodegradable, but I think I need to learn a bit more about how we're disposing of that after what's been talked about. And we also try and transport our meals as sustainably as possible. So we use bike couriers, we use volunteer delivery drivers, and we've actually just got funding for a hybrid van, which is very exciting. We also want to use our skills and experience and influence change. So we conduct research and we produce reports, which informs what we do and how we develop our services, but also others within the sector. So where are we now? As I said, we work across, we've got 14 meal services, and that's growing. So 14 venues across 4 London boroughs at the moment. Most of our services are community meals where we cook and eat together, but we also have production kitchens, which is basically where we use the kitchen service in a venue to make meals, to take it to other places where they don't have those facilities, but they still have vulnerable people with a need for nutritious meals. We work with a range of people in the community, people experiencing homelessness, older people, people with mental health challenges, asylum seekers and refugees. And we've got a new service, a new meal service, which is opening next month in King's Cross. And then we've got a growing number of our health eating on a budget programme services launching. So these are, as I said, sort of education programmes to provide a bit lasting change and support to people to manage their own nutrition and health. They're for the same populations that we work with in the community meals and the delivered meals. And yeah, we've got a number of those live at the moment, and that's a growing area of our work. We also lead collaborative food partnerships. Again, I don't know if that's a familiar term, but in Camden and Redbridge boroughs, we work with a wide network of charities that provides food support. We work with the local councils and public health teams and local businesses to try and come together to collaborate around action plans and strategies to tackle food insecurity in the local areas. And also underlying causes and impacts. So maybe not just about food, but how do we tackle poverty, which is the root cause of obviously of food poverty and food insecurity. We're also conducting the research that I touched on earlier. So we're doing at the moment a novel piece of clinical nutrition research, which is in partnership with University College London, funded by the British Dietetic Association. And it's looking at the nutritional status of people experiencing homelessness. Led by our founder and trustee, Hannah Style, who's still an NHS dietitian. So that will be published later this year. And with early findings that we're publishing at the moment, we're sharing at the moment. So 2024, it's going to be our busiest year ever, which I think is good, but obviously it's a sad reflection of the growing need for services like us and the increase of food insecurity and diet and health related issues associated with it. But we've hoped to serve another 3,000 meals. So last year we did about 27,000 meals. We'll go up to 30,000. And as I said, doing more and more of the health eating on a budget programs. So providing some longer lasting impact and support to people. So how does it work? We have a team. We have a small team of paid staff, which are chefs, nutritionists, and community coordinators. And we are supported by hundreds of amazing volunteers. And they may be individual volunteers or from corporate organizations, teams. So last year, I think we had a total of over 400 people who had supported us through the year, which is fantastic. In our community dining settings, our chefs have to be incredibly creative and think on their feet. I don't know if people are familiar with Ready, Steady, Cook, but when you're relying on surplus food to make meals, you're not quite sure what you're going to get. So we do make lots. So there's certain times of the year where probably starter, main course and dessert are courgette based, for example, or spinach based. So yes, lots of creativity. We also work with Felix Project and City Harvest, which were mentioned earlier. So Felix Project provide most of our surplus food. And then we've got some other local food redistribution organisations that we work with, depending on which area we're in. And we also speak to local supermarkets for donations. Community groups do donation drives for us and provide food. And also our corporate partners donate to us as well. We started working with corporate volunteer groups at the end of 2022. So it's relatively new for us, but it's been so popular. It's been fantastic. I think it's a great opportunity for people to get teams together to do something fun and impactful. They're really fun events. And I think some of the photos that were earlier were from our Bywaters sessions. So we hosted last year 82 corporate sessions, and we've got a couple of examples of Bywaters, but a few of the other names of organisations that we work with. The largest event we did was for 50 people. I wouldn't say that's something we want to do all the time. It was incredibly challenging to host that larger group. So normally, typically 6 to 8, but we can be flexible in terms of the size that of the team that we work with. So corporate teams get the chance to create their own menus, and there are jobs given to suit all abilities. So you don't have to be a cordon bleu chef to participate. You could be on veg chopping duty or befriending duty. If we've got a community dining, you can be sitting and chatting to the people that have come to eat with us. So as I said, where we can't do a community meal, we use bikes, and our new van will shortly be incorporated. And getting that van is going to be really great for us to be able to access more surplus food, which is actually an increasing challenge. There's so much demand for surplus food. So many organisations are trying to get hold of it, and it's becoming costly in itself for the redistributors to get that out to the organisations that need it. So having our own vehicle will be fantastic. We can go and collect it and get access to so much more surplus food. So how can you help? Hopefully that's piqued your interest and given you some idea about what we do and how you could potentially get involved. We'd love to hear from you if you want to volunteer, when that could be on an individual basis or as a team event. We've got some sessions, I think, already scheduled with Bywaters, some dates. Come and drive for us. We're looking for volunteers who want to take our van on the road. That'd be fantastic. Get your trainers on, take a hike, go running, raise some money for us. We're organising some challenge events this year, which is the first time that we've got some organised ones. But we love it when people just choose us as a charity to do some events. So last year, someone ran the Barcelona Marathon. We've got someone doing an Ironman this year, as well as kids doing fun runs. Donate. Cash is always welcome. So either donate to us or create a fundraising page for us. Collecting food donations, as I said, we will take food from lots of different sources, and if you want to do a donation drive, that'd be fantastic. We also often find we need other equipment, kitchen equipment, so that's something. If you ever come across any commercial cooking equipment, cutlery, crockery, we will take that too, gladly. And just keep in touch. So sign up to our newsletter, follow us on all of the social media channels, keep involved, and yeah, it'd be great to see you at one of our events.
All right. Thank you so much, Caroline. Thank you for that. That was great. I hope everyone was taking some notes, because we're going to quiz you at the end. Yeah, I'm actually joking. We're not going to quiz you at the end, but hope you're all listening. And if you do want to get involved in anything with Feast or with Bibles, just reach out. The email addresses are there. The links are all here as well. So please do just reach out. Yeah. Oops. Let's see. Perfect. All right. So moving on. Best practices for businesses. What can we do as a business? So firstly, I'm going to rattle through these as a few, but employee engagement. So making sure that everyone is aware, because education is the main thing. So teaching everyone about the correct practices, the correct waste streams that you have to have in place, everything like that is key. Allocating resources. You don't want to be going out and buying loads and loads of food and no one's eating it. You need to be allocating your resources efficiently. You know, let's say, for example, if people are doing hybrid working and you've got a couple of days in the office where you actually have lower volumes in there, you don't need all of that food on a Friday, because by the time people come in again on a Monday, it may go out of date. So you need to be thinking about these sort of things and working towards that. So that sort of links with the third one, improving your forecasting and planning. Just think ahead, basically. Making use of technology. So like I mentioned earlier, we've got those cameras, things like that we can always look towards and help you. So if you do have something else you want us to speak about, or technology wise, you can always come to us. Actually, a few things on technology as well. There's obviously lots of legislation changes and things like that that are taking place, and They do get pushed back, so the timing isn't always exactly great, unfortunately. But yeah, so you may have heard of a few machines. So we have some machines called orcas. So what they do is they sort of take the food waste and they break it down and they make a wastewater product. So they will actually be sort of banned by the new legislations. You won't be able to empty that wastewater back into the back into wherever you're emptying your wastewater. You'd actually need to get something like an on-site composter instead. So if you do have anything like that, or you are interested in on-site composters, just reach out. Next point is setting and monitoring KPIs. So again, with a couple of the other ones, just planning, just make sure you're keeping on top of it, because all it takes is just a couple of moments where you're just not thinking about it and it just starts to rack up and rack up and rack up. And if you're not segregating that waste properly, or you're not donating it, it just ends up building up and you're just basically paying money for nothing. Date labeling. So this is actually something that some of my clients have actually done. And what they do is they go around and they write in big letters the date that it's going to go out of date on. So on all their products that they get, just to make it a little bit more visible. And that way people in the office can actually see when things are going off. It sounds so simple, but you'd be surprised how many people just leave that can in there, or leave that whatever it may be. And then it just stays there for a year, then who knows, right? I'm sure we've all got something in the back of our fridge that's just been there for a long time, and who knows how long it's been there for. And now at this point, you're too scared to take it out because you don't know if it's out of date or not. So having those dates in the front, nice and easy to read, does help. Looking at stock levels as well. So if you are keeping a lot of food on site, just making sure that you're managing those levels. And again, redistribution of surplus food. So if you do have lots and lots of food and you're not going to be able to use it, please consider redistributing that. I know a lot of people may be thinking, but it's just me, I'm just an individual, I'm just one person. What difference can I make? What about these big companies? They're not making a difference. They're not doing anything. Every time I go to Tesco, they're just throwing away loads of food. Well, I'm here to let you know that that's not the case. They are actually trying to do something. So in 2023, WRAP and WWF joined forces with the companies you see on the right to standardize food and drink greenhouse gas emissions reporting. So they have a target of 50% absolute reduction in emissions by 2030. So that is sort of showing you that you're not alone in this. It is everyone working together, and we need everyone from the individual all the way up to the large companies to be taking this seriously, really, because it is a bit of an issue and it does need to get sorted at some point. Yeah, best practice for households. So now I'm an individual. What can I do? So when you go shopping, try and plan. What do you actually need? Make a list. Make a list. Go down and try not to be drawn into impulse buying. So the way that the supermarkets actually set up their food is they lay it out in different sections. So when you walk through, you're more likely to buy something else, or more likely to be tempted by something else. I think that's why they always have the bread right at the back. So you have to walk through the whole shop to try and get the bread first. So little tip for you there. But yeah, another thing, make use of the whole ingredient. So a lot of the times you may be thinking, okay, I'm cutting up some vegetables, or I've got some chicken bones or anything like that. What you can do is actually make a stock with all of that. A little bit time consuming and a little bit scary as well, actually, because if you told me make a stock, I'm not going to have the first clue how to make that. But try new things. Try and look at the ingredients that you've got. Try and look online, see if you've got some new recipes, something to try out. Because at the end of the day, most of these waste products or waste bits from the vegetables or from the food that we've got, they can actually be used. So another way to reduce your waste. And lastly, buy tinned and frozen food as well. If you're buying loads and loads of just fresh food, it will likely expire around the same date. So try and buy a little bit of everything. If you've got some tins, amazing. If you've got some frozen food, that lasts even longer than the fresh produce. But obviously, all in moderation. We don't recommend just buying 100 tins and just only eating tin food. Try and keep a little bit of everything. But sort of lets you keep track and not lose all of your food waste, or just to let it rot, basically. Some more stuff as well. Don't judge food just by its appearance. So you may have heard of things like Oddbox and other things like that. So they've basically marketed themselves as providing you with a whole load of fresh fruit and veg, but they're a little bit odd. So the shape may be a little bit different to what we're used to. Because a lot of the time when you go to the supermarkets, they would only accept the perfect product. So if those carrots are not exactly straight, then they won't put them in the bags. So things like that. That's not to say that a carrot that isn't completely straight won't taste nice, won't taste the exact same. It's just the shape. So it's just wasting food for basically no reason as well. So if you do go in and you think, oh, okay, this carrot here, the only carrot left, but it's a little bit wonky, I'm not going to buy it, just buy it. It'll be the same. It'll be the same. Next as well is storing your food correctly. So making sure that you're putting your vegetables and your fruits in the correct areas. So for example, onions can make root vegetables go bad quickly. So don't store them next to each other. And I've actually heard something, I don't know if this is true, so don't take it as 100% true, but I think if you put bananas next to some, I can't remember which vegetables it were, if you put bananas next to some vegetables, it actually makes them go out of date quicker. So yeah, another half tip for you there. There is a big difference between best before and use by dates as well. So use by refers to the food safety. So do not cross the use by date basically, because it may not be safe to eat, whereas the best before refers to quality of the food. So if I had a banana and it says best before today, I can still eat it tomorrow. It'll be perfectly fine tomorrow. It just won't be at the best quality as it was before. Yeah, just some nice light and easy tips at the end. And I think that's pretty much everything. So any questions, guys, we'll open it straight up to you. I think we've actually got a few things in the chat first. So let's go back now. Oops. All right, so James from before, thank you. Can you provide a waste stream for possible packaging? Yes, we can. Rodrigo, what is the best way to dispose of coffee grounds? You can either put them in your food waste stream, or if you have a dedicated coffee ground waste stream as well, either is fine. It just depends on how you really want to recycle them. If you want a bit more of a circular economy thing, then the coffee ground waste stream is perfect for you. If you do just want to recycle it, food waste is fine. Let's see. Within our borough, we only accept compostable packaging liners with this code. Yeah, I think it will vary depending on which borough or area that you're in. Just depends, because they're all different and they all get collected by different people and they all have their own facilities. So it's something that you need to be aware of. See, Ruth, are any of these companies also acting in the US? Yes, they are. So Luigi put in the chat as well. So Olio worldwide, too good to go. More than 9,300 participants in the USA. Fair Share is UK based and Felix Project is London based. Let's see. Okay. Adrian, you go for the yellow label items in food stores. Great bargain. Exactly. That is an amazing tip. If you ever go into Tesco or you ever go into another retailer or anything like that, they always put the little reduced stickers on and you can get basically the same thing for just a reduced price. So definitely I would recommend, if you weren't aware of that already, they normally have like a little section where they put all of the reduced stuff together. So that's what I did at uni. Saved a lot of money doing that. So definitely agree. Let's see, got a few more questions. No?
I've just added a question there for Feast. If that could be addressed, that'd be great. Thank you.
What was the question?
It's around legalities of surplus food, especially on health and safety and security. You know, how, especially for also specifically looking at surplus food that's not pre-packed, like sandwiches and things like that. How do we ensure everyone else involved in the process is sort of covered and protected for any liabilities or anything like that, really?
So when we take surplus donations, you mean, just to make sure that it's is that what you mean? How do
it's safe for part. Yeah. So
I think when we take collections from redistributors, obviously they are used to handling food. We tend to really take fresh fruit and veg. So we wouldn't take, there are certain things we wouldn't take, and we have to be very careful about meat and dairy. if we're taking donations that have been collected by a donation drive or local community, we tend to just take dry and tinned and ambient products, because that just, again, keeps the risks low. But yeah, and then we've got processes actually within our kitchens to ensure that it's managed properly. We're still under the EHO regulation, and we get visited. So yeah, we have to maintain sort of standards that any other food business would maintain, a restaurant or a cafe.
Okay.
But
But how about cooked food, for example? If we have a restaurant and we end up with, I don't know, maybe 50 servings of lasagna left or something like that, that we would like to donate to a local charity.
Take that, unfortunately, because we haven't got the knowledge of how it was prepared. We have got no control over the standards that were applied during that. So yeah, we can't take finished meals.
Okay, thank you.
Erin, I see you've got your hand up.
Thanks, Emmanuel. I just wondered if it's kind of similar actually in a way to what Rodrigo was talking about, whether you know of any good like sort of charities in the City of London that collect, if we have like a lunch from a leftover sandwiches or something like that, and you just know that they're not going to get eaten. Is there, I'm sure there's pickup services, but I haven't come across any recently. I don't know whether you know of any.
I think I'm not sure any that do pick up. I mean, what we can do is where we work in across boroughs, we can, because we've got networks of lots of different organisations, so we can put calls out to them to say, is anyone located locally to a food business that could go and pick it up? So that's another way that we can help out, even if there's not a sort of organisation that is collecting and redistributing. We can connect businesses with people that could utilise that food waste.
Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks Yashi for putting that in the chat. ReFood is an active organisation in London. Yes, they are. We actually do work with ReFood as well. So that's something that we can sort of look into. We'll speak to our contacts there and see how they can sort of accept food waste and if they can redistribute it as well. So thanks for that. I think we've got people actually answering questions in the chat as well. So this is amazing. Like a little community. Everyone's answering. Perfect. If anyone's got any more questions as well, feel free. You can speak up or put it in the chat. Either one. Seems like we've got people answering in the chat as well. So either way. Anyone got any more burning questions? If not, I'd say, can dried pumpkin shells go into food recycling? Yes, they can. They can go into food recycling. You're a retired waste manager for the NHS. Waste segregation was always a challenge, but between waste companies, will segregate in different ways depending on facilities? Is there plans to get this standardized? That is a great question, Adrian. As much as I wish that everyone would just be standardized in this industry, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. It is a little bit of a problem, a little bit of an issue, if you ask me, because every council is different, every borough is different. When you go to work, it's different from your home. So, unfortunately, to answer your question, I don't think there are any plans to standardize this anytime soon. Any other burning questions? All right, well, lovely. Thank you all for coming today. We've appreciated having you on. If you do want a copy of the slides or any of the links or anything that we've spoken about, please reach out to us. Send me an email. My email's available somewhere, or my LinkedIn, wherever you can get. Basically, just send me a message, an email, a call, whatever you need. And yeah, if you want to speak to Caroline, I'm more than happy to forward on her email as well. And hopefully we can make use of this presentation and build on with that. So yeah, thank you again, Caroline. Thanks for joining. We've enjoyed having you on.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Lovely to meet everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day.